It's 11:04. Welcome back. Former De La Salle football player and fourth-round pick of the Indianapolis Colts, Jalen Travis, joins us now. You can learn more about him, his team, and his ventures off the field via X at Jalen Travis. And here he is. Jalen, it's Paul Allen. Good to meet you.
Paul, great to meet you as well. Thanks for having me on.
Right on, man. Leadership Summit for high school leaders and mainly juniors and seniors is going to take place June 26th at De La Salle High School in Minneapolis, and it's free to attend. First and foremost, before we get into that, I know you're heading into your second year, but off that first year, congratulations on a solid NFL start. Things going well for you?
So far, so good. You know, as most rookie years are for people who move very fast, learning by the day. And I think I was fortunate to be in a position to contribute early, but also learn along the way against behind a very experienced and tenured offensive line, and be able to step in later in the season in some high pressure and high profile environments down the road or down the stretch was incredible for me, and was just fortunate to be able to end the season on the right note and keep the momentum going heading to the second year.
So, and I should know this, I apologize. Is minicamp done for you guys? And overall, just how are things going for you and the Colts this offseason?
Yeah, no, so we wrapped up minicamp last Thursday, and it was a great spring for us. I think, offensively speaking, and it was a very heavy draft for us defensively. In offense, we were able to retain a lot of our key pillars and players, and being able to sign, Daniel and Alec back this offseason was huge for us. And then retain, mostly everyone on the O-line, and, hopefully put me in a position to contribute in a very solid way this coming year. So, I'm excited, especially coming off this spring, and, rest up here over the next few weeks heading into the fall.
My man, that sounds great. Lastly, here on this topic, so what was last season like for you? And just like, what are some things that go into being eye-opening for a rookie offensive lineman from college, going from that into banging with a bunch of accomplished pros?
Yeah, I mean, it quickly goes from, you're being, you're fascinated with the people you're going against, the people you're playing with. We have, Quentin Nelson, for example, in our line room, 8-9-time All-Pro, someone who has really made a name for himself in this league as being one of the best to play our position, to, admiring, but also growing with, and then putting yourself in a position where you're able to compete alongside of him to help the mission of the team. And I think that was the arc of my rookie year, was like, the first few weeks or, last spring was like still trying to get the hang of, what was going on. And then obviously fall comes around and you're in a position where you're being counted on, expectations are starting to rise. And then when you do get the chance to start a game, when I did get the chance to, step in with Phillip Rivers in the backfield of all people, the expectations are there. And I was like, all right, I trust myself. I trust the people I'm playing next to. So let's just let it rip. And I think going into the second year, being able to build off of that has been huge for me. Having got a lot of that first wave out of the way.
Minnesotan Jalen Travis, he dominated at De La Salle High School, then he went to Princeton, then he went to Iowa State, fourth-round pick a couple of years ago by the Indianapolis Colts into the National Football League. He has a leadership summit for high school leaders at De La Salle High School, and it takes place June 26th. More on that momentarily, we promise, but you just touched on something that I just have to ask you about. I mean, when I started looking back at like what you did last year and the snap counts and everything and those 4 starts, what was it like being the starting left tackle for football immortality Phillip Rivers? That's amazing. That's amazing.
Incredible. It's fascinating because I think I'm as old as his oldest child. And Phil and I, we sat next to each other in the team meeting room, and it was funny. And like there was obviously like, all right, like Phil's coming back for a reason, for a purpose, to try to make help us finish this season on the right note. And he still has it. Still I think one of the sharpest players that I've been around in terms of the way he understands and processes the game. And his legend status was made apparent from the first time I met him. And I think it was just fascinating for me as a young player, as a rookie, to just be around that. And even though it was just 4 weeks, to learn and grow and soak up as much wisdom and knowledge that I could from a guy like that in the backfield.
That's amazing, man. That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing. All right. Tell us about June 26th and the Jalen Travis Leadership Summit and what you're looking to accomplish.
Yeah, Paul, when I start thinking about, impact and really the service that I want to give back to the city of Minneapolis and the roots that, helped me grow was like, all right, I wanted to do something a little bit different than maybe on the field camp that, a lot of professional athletes do, and rightfully so, but do something that was really indicative of my journey. Having two brothers in the household that went to great academic schools, but also played basketball at a high level, I had mentors in my life from a young age to help, reinforce and plant those seeds and remind me of the potential that I have and, the areas where I can continue to grow. And I think the idea behind the Leadership Summit is to give high school leaders, those who want to go to the next level through their sport or even just through the academy, the resources, opportunities, and spaces to explore that in a very fundamental and real way around people who have done it, around professionals who are leading in these areas, to come back and pour into them and give them the tools, resources, and spaces to begin to explore that from a younger age. Because we know, at the front of NIL, at the front of, a lot of these changes happening in the world of college sports more generally, these topics are becoming even more relevant to high schoolers, younger and younger, and families and the students themselves need access to what does it look like to financially plan earlier and earlier on? What does it look like to prepare and get you the right team around you if NIL is going to be a part of your equation? Little things like that, I think, are huge for high schoolers to be exposed to in a way that on the field camp or an on the field experience won't do, because I think through my experience, I learned that, on the field is roughly 10% of your day, but it's in the classroom, it's in the film room, it's, your team outside of the, the facility that's helping you manage and excel in life outside of football that really makes up the person who you are and only gives you confidence in that 10% that you're on the field.
And Jalen, I mean, with respect to your career and, what it goes into at Iowa State or Princeton, to achieve at the highest level, paying attention in those meetings and, having, the benefit of working to a way where you recognize God gifted you in a way that you can absorb things maybe more quickly than those who either don't care as much or are not trying. So, but meetings become monotonous. I mean, it's, I mean, just by your laugh, you know what I'm talking about, from
Absolutely
organized team activities up to mini camp this time of the year for pro football players. But this is phenomenal. And then once the 4th of July hits, you got to start reconditioning and getting back into the playbook for training camp. So Jalen knows exactly what I'm talking about. But with this leadership summit, we got leadership, we have financial literacy, name, image, and likeness, NIL, that'll be discussed. But like having the mental tenacity or wherewithal to push through the monotony of all these meetings, that's low key so important, don't you think?
Absolutely. And I think it's when you talk about mental stamina, emotional stamina, especially in our sports that we're in that are extremely taxing in all aspects of life, physically, emotionally, spiritually, to be able to come to the table and say, I want this so bad that I'm willing to learn the best practices in every area of my life, is important. Because especially as we continue to excel, and I think this was very indicative of my journey, and as God continued to put me in spaces that, no one in my family has been before, that no one in my community has been before, but has continued to reiterate to me that I needed to lock in and treat this like it's the most important thing in the world, even though it may be, my 5th meeting of the day going over inside zone, right? Like this is important because the mission and the vision and my goals are so big.
Yeah.
That I have to treat this with the respect and care that it deserves. So that's exactly what we're trying to provide here. Just a glimpse. And I think maybe the high schoolers that walk away from the day with, 2 or 3 tips that people who aren't in the room have,
Yeah.
I think our goal for the day will be accomplished.
That's a wonderful way to look at it. At Jalen Travis via X. I know we have Instagram and probably some different things. I'm only on Twitter, so that's why I push that. At Jalen Travis, at Jalen Travis. Now, it's free. It's free for those to join this June 26th. What's the best route for people to register? Like, where would you send them, Jalen?
Yeah, so on all of our social media pages, so Next is Now _MN on both Instagram and Twitter, and then nextisnow-mn.org online. All these sites have the registration, and we're happy to partner with the local organization, athletes committed to educating students, who are actually bringing in middle schoolers. So at the end of the day, to participate in a mock combine type format to give our high schoolers a real access to service in real time, to begin to realize the privilege and access that they have with their platform. But registration is free. The day is free. Merchandise and access and resources is all free for the day. We just want to make sure that those who need it and those who want it have the opportunity to engage with it and continue to grow in their own way.
Yeah, and if you miss the Next is Now or any of the routes to registration, you can search Jalen Travis Leadership Summit and it'll pop right up. This is fascinating. I think it's really, really cool that you're doing this and being as giving as you are with it. And I said it earlier. Hopefully I didn't get it wrong. Is it Jalen? Is it you guys with this leadership summit, June 26th at De La Salle High School? It's free. Are you preferring juniors and seniors in high school, or is that the requirement?
No, that's what we're preferring. And I think what's fascinating for us is that, the topics that we're covering may not be applicable to people earlier on in their journey. That doesn't mean that they can't register, come, and be a part of the day. But especially for, I think, some of the more relevant topics as it relates to NIL, financial literacy, they may not be as applicable, but we want people who want to be in the room, because I realize that even in conversations as I was and continue to go through my journey, that I may not understand all the verbiage or, be able to apply everything that's being talked about in the spaces I'm in. As I begin to mature and develop in my own way, that advice becomes increasingly more relevant to me. So even if you're a freshman or sophomore and want to come, please sign up. Please be a part of the day. We want to have you. But definitely juniors and seniors is our target audience with this one, so to speak.
Jalen, are there multiple speakers? And when discussing leadership, what do you deem to be some keys that go into leadership?
Yeah, so we have a handful of speakers lined up for the day, and it's really, I think, a studded lineup, really indicative of my journey. So we have the privilege of welcoming, our own Chet Holmgren back to kind of kick it off, who I had the privilege of growing up with, and very close family friend, and the success that he's found, in his professional journey in the NBA. But also, bringing back, my agency, Chris Cabot, Sam Mirza, who just got done, obviously negotiating Patrick Mahomes' record deal, are coming back to talk about their experience with NIL, making sure that you have the right people around you to negotiate some of these contracts. Money management, my bank's coming in, and Northern Trust to lead some of these sessions in a very fundamental and real way. So we definitely have a very well-rounded, I think, perspective, in addition to a handful of other professional athletes, both from the Colts and located are, those from Minneapolis, coming back to help serve as mentors that maybe won't have a specific speaking role throughout the day, but will be available for folks to ask questions about their journey and their pathways to how they continue to build their path. And I think leadership for me is, being humble and willing to serve, and being able to speak to people and meet them where they're at towards a common goal. And, I know that some of the best leaders I've been around, have brought me into the mission and vision of what we're trying to accomplish, whether that's winning a championship or working on a group project in class.
Right.
My perspective, their perspective was always heard. It was negotiated. And the belief was met at the intersection of these different ideas of the best way to get there. Because I think the best way for anything to get done is a mutual understanding of the goal and everyone bringing their unique skills and expertise to the table to accomplish that. And I think that's what we're trying to really cultivate today by bringing students from every corner of the city together to have some very real conversations about the practicalities of what it means to grow, develop as a young person, and hopefully, grow together going forward. And we want the Leadership Summit to be a seed, I think, of a very strong tree network that these students can take with them throughout the rest of their high school careers, and then hopefully, beyond that.
That answer was so eloquent, and I loved it. Let me see if I can amplify it a little bit and see what you think.
Please. Yes.
Stupid question here. All right. Is Grover Stewart still on your team?
Grover is. Yep.
All right. Well, here's the deal. All right. Now, DeForest Buckner, he's going to get all the headlines on that defensive line. And I know he's nearing the end of his career, but I mean, DeForest has been the bomb for many, many years. All right. Well, next to him is this cat named Grover Stewart, who doesn't get the headlines Buckner, Sauce Gardner, or Jonathan Taylor get, but he's very, very important at what he does. Now, like from the Jalen Travis standpoint, left tackle Indianapolis Colts into his second year from Iowa State, self-awareness and recognizing what's going into you trying to beat me. So, and I know he's an inside guy, and you play tackle, but it still can mesh together. And having a recognition in the business world or in a career of recognizing, all right, things here are working incredibly well. God clearly has gifted me or you or whomever in these ways, but there's still going to be somebody trying to beat me. So having a recognition with respect and preferably non-confrontational in a business-like setting or as you ascend, recognizing that and working your way around it through self-awareness. Know what I mean?
100%. 100%. I think you couldn't put it better. And, you have guys like Grover and Buck and, both excellent players in their own right. But it's them together and their understanding of both their strengths and weaknesses individually, but also what they bring to the table together, I think allows us to have, one of the best interior D lines in the league. And, without them being on the same page, without them playing to, each other's strengths, you have two excellent people on an island. But I think where the true magic and transformation happens is when they come together, when, Lou Amaruto, drafts up a great defensive scheme week to week, allows these guys to play free. And I think that's what you saw last year. That's what you've seen, I think throughout these guys, 10-year careers in the success that they've been able to have. And as a guy who has to compete against that week in and week out, practice in and practice out, it only sharpens me because I think I see what it takes to operate on that level and to find the success that they've been able to have.
So whether just a few to close here with Jalen Travis, formerly De La Salle, a fourth-round pick from Iowa State by the Indianapolis Colts a couple of years ago. NIL, name, image, and likeness, or financial literacy. What's that world of college football like these days, and what do kids need to know?
Yeah, it's plus it's the wild, wild west. I think is an appropriate analogy for it in the sense that, the market is free and schools are aggressive. When I was going through the portal, there were a handful of schools that approached me with money first, not how you're going to help me get to where I want to be in terms of football development, personal development, where I want to be in terms of my long-term career goals and making it to the league and getting drafted. Schools right now feel the pressure to win now, and they're willing to pay for it. So in turn, that puts a lot of pressure on families and kids coming right out of high school to make a very real decision in terms of betting on their future or betting on a dollar amount for that next year alone. And I think that's where NIL has, in large part, paralyzed a lot of students in their growth in terms of the game of football, where the number is big up front, but they don't often see the return in terms of their development over the long run. And I think I give a huge shout out to Matt Campbell, who is at Iowa State, now at Penn State, in terms of, his approach to the person, in terms of growing the athlete and growing the person behind the athlete is the most important thing for him. And that's one reason why I went to Iowa State, maybe as opposed to some of the other schools in the portal, was that, we didn't talk about money, and money was a part of the equation, and my agents handled that. But Coach Campbell was very forward about, you're coming here, we're here to develop you as a person and player. And I think giving these tools early and earlier on in terms of being able to protect families and students for what they may eventually go through as it comes to NIL is becoming more important, because at the end of the day, you do need to have advocates in the room. You do need to have a clear vision of who you are and what you want out of this process. Otherwise, the needs of whether it's these teams or outside influences tend to get the best of these situations.
Jalen Travis, offensive lineman for the Indianapolis Colts. Leadership Summit, De La Salle High School, June 26th. Couple of football questions to close. Does left guard Quentin Nelson still maul defensive players on a down-by-down basis? And what can you learn from crafty veterans like Quentin?
Quentin is unrelenting. Simply, inspiring to play next to, and I think has been a huge mentor for me, over the last year in terms of one, understanding the game, and his approach to the game, but also, his approach while in the game, and having the chance to play, left tackle on Monday Night Football versus the 49ers last year next to him, and being able to come back on the sideline, digest series by series, play by play, and just understand the way and what he's looking for down in and down out from our defenses, and how we adjust his technique accordingly is incredible. So his approach to the game and his mentality in terms of, everything is about finishing. No matter what we do, we're going to be the hardest workers. He's the first one to pick the running back or the receiver, up for, after they get tackled. Little things like that I think have been inspirational, and slowly been trying to incorporate a part of my game for sure. But, he hasn't found the success that he's had for no reason. And to be able to be in a room with a guy like that has been everything I needed.
How does being 6'8" help you play offensive tackle?
Coach Tony Serrano, who's our O-line coach here, he was like, they're tools. And, being one of the biggest people on the field, no matter when I step onto it or who we're playing, is a tool and asset to me. And I think part of it is learning how to leverage it and use it to the best of my ability to make sure that I can be the best that I can, down in and down out, series in and series out, has been a growth process for me, because I do think there's many 6'8" people out there who maybe won't be able to find success in the NFL. But I think that's been the area of growth for me was, all right, whether it's my length, the strength that I carry, my quickness, and with my agility and my basketball background, to be able to let that 6'8", 330 frame play to my advantage, and never shrink, inside this frame, has been something that, I've been proud of, and I think has been indicative of my success.
You started at Princeton before shifting to Iowa State. What's Ivy League football like compared to the Big 12?
Paul, I'll keep it real with you. I think, Ivy League football, we have a tremendous amount of talent, and we have some very hard workers. But the Ivy League experience, I think, is one that is unique in its own right, and that you have people dedicated to their craft on the field, but some are, equally, if not more, dedicated to their craft and intellectual pursuits off the field. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons why I appreciated the Ivy League environment in particular, because you were pushed in every corner of your life, where stepping into a Big 12 environment, where football is your thing. Football went from being your part-time job at Princeton to your full-time job at Iowa State. And, you went from 5,000 to 10,000 in the stands at Princeton to 70,000, 80,000 sold out week in and week out at Iowa State. And I think that for me was the exposure that I needed to step into an environment like the NFL with the Colts, with a similarly dedicated fan base, and to have the confidence and comfort to excel and just play my game. But, it's definitely day and night, and I don't know that they're entirely comparable, but I think they're unique in their own right, and both bring, value to the table.
Last one, and this has been the highlight of the radio show today. It's not close. No, it really has. This is fantastic. The Vikings drafted Cyclones defensive tackle Dominic Orange. Big citrus. What did you see in him while you guys were together at Iowa State?
Yeah, you guys got a good one. You guys got a real good one. I think Dom is one of those that can develop into one of the best interior players on the D line in this league because he has the athleticism, the mindset, and I think passion for this game that is often rare to find. And, I saw it having to go against him. And, when Iowa State, we played a 3-4 defense, and sometimes he would move out to a 3-tech or a 4-eye, and I would have to cut him off backside. And when I say a 320, 315-pound lineman shouldn't be able to move the way that he moves, it makes life difficult. So, I can't wait, for us to get, back to Minnesota this year and, match up with him and see him again on the field. But,
yeah.
I'm excited for him. I'm excited for, obviously, the Vikings to have a good one in him because I do think that he can be, a key cornerstone to you guys finding success this year.
Hey, Jalen, anything else we need to know about the Leadership Summit, June 26th at De La Salle High School? It's free. Anything else we need to know, bud?
I don't think so. I mean, we're really just working to get the right people in the room, people who want to be there. We mentioned all the registration channels, whether it's through, our social medias or our website or, like Paul, you mentioned, just searching my name up with Leadership Summit attached. Yep. We're just eager to get people in the room and take advantage of the resources and opportunities and spaces that we have to offer.
Did you grow up a Vikings fan?
I did, born and raised. Parents grew up working the games,
really?
Listening to you on the radio. Yeah, the whole thing. We don't live too far from the stadium,
right
so
on.
it was very much part of our DNA growing up. So something I still embrace and have to remind my parents once in a while that we have to wear the Colts blue. There's no more Vikings purple and gold anymore. But definitely still very much a part of it.
All right, man. We will see if you have time up to the Vikings and Colts game. Maybe on a Tuesday we can do this again or something. Really appreciate your time and doing the Leadership Summit. Have a wonderful day. Thank you, Jalen.
No doubt. Thank you, Paul. Talk soon.
See you, bud. Jalen Travis, Leadership Summit, June 26th, De La Salle High School, free for juniors and seniors in high school. That's the preference, but go ahead and Google Jalen Travis, Leadership Summit, Minnesota, and I think it'll be eye-opening for you. Back after this.
The Fan has your chance to win $2,500. All you got to do, go to KFAN.com and enter the keyword birthday. The keyword is birthday, $2,500 on the line. Enter that keyword birthday at KFAN.com.
Nordo is going to be in Hastings Friday at 2 o'clock, USA-Australia World Cup. A World Cup-related question involving the United States of America is with the USA World Cup team, has it been put together antithetical to the way World Cup teams generally are built? And to wit, what I mean, to wit, we find American talent from other countries. Did I phrase that right?
Yeah, effectively you did. Yeah, so the goal of Team USA has been to, of course, just at a base level, put the best product on the field. Sadly, over the course of history, finding players that play and develop within the ranks of Major League Soccer, the American youth system, has not yielded those results. And so kind of the frame of the idea is I want to find players that are playing with big clubs overseas that are facing the competition and developing, in many cases, alongside some of those players we're now seeing wearing somebody else's colors in the World Cup. So you asked me yesterday, and we were just kind of talking and just kind of surface level stuff. Flo Balogun is the name of the guy that made his World Cup debut last week.
Number 20.
Scores 2. Dig that. I believe that might be the best debut of any striker in American World Cup history. But to that end, born in America, he is American, but then he basically spent his entire youth, I believe it was in the Arsenal youth system. And so his parents brought him over there. I don't know the particulars. Maybe they were living there. There's a work thing, etc. I don't know the particulars of that. But in the end, he was on trial with the Tottenham club, Tottenham Hotspur, big-time Premier League squad over there, and then Arsenal. Certainly, many even casual soccer fans are familiar with Arsenal. Spent his entire youth career there, built himself up. Now he plays for Monaco in France's top league, Ligue 1, and that is where we are trying to find bodies. That's how we are trying to find the best talent to fill out this roster. And without going name by name, you're starting to find a Christian Pulisic. Most people know that name. Even the casuals would know that he would be considered our chief creator, the best player in the American soccer system right now overall. He's been spending almost the entirety of his pro career overseas as well. Despite some weird rumors domestically, by the way, but that's a different thing. You're seeing this throughout all of international soccer, though, PA. Morocco, great example. Made a huge run in World Cup 2022. Very good squad. Drew Brazil the other day, and they look poised maybe to find themselves deep in the tournament. Only one starter on the team, PA, was born in Morocco. So you're finding this can be through immigration. It can be through the naturalization or the birth connection right to your parents. I believe it can go as deep as your grandparents. But they are seeking out talent for these international teams that are not necessarily domestic, but playing in the most competitive environments globally.
Interesting.
It's become a significant rat race, but for America in particular. And I, appreciate MLS. Glad it's here. It deserves to exist. All of those things. MLS just isn't good enough, isn't deep enough. The youth and development system in the United States is not on par with what these kids are exposed to overseas. And the more that you can find, again, part of those big clubs is why you're seeing America kind of changing the way it develops its rosters. And for Balogun, at least for one day, I mean, my goodness, thank goodness for Mr. Balogun.
All right. And secondly, 2 o'clock Central today with the World Cup has me very intrigued.
Ooh, why?
Well, is it fair to say France is either the favorite to win the World Cup or one of the top 3?
Very fair to say both favored and absolutely top 3, yeah.
So 2 o'clock today, who they hook?
They hook Senegal, I believe.
Senegal, I read a story last night, or part of a story. Senegal, is a top 20 soccer product in the world. Mm-hmm. Who knew? I didn't. Senegal also used to be a French territory. So, I mean, the fan bases for these groups, I mean, I ain't saying it's like, 1776 and England and the what would become the United States in totality.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's that, but Senegalese, however you describe it.
I go with that, yeah.
They are so fired up to play Big Brother, to play this French squad, and Senegal's good. I mean, top 20 top 18 team in the world.
Yep.
That's 2 o'clock Central today. I think that's pretty compelling.
No, it's absolutely massive. Again, that's where we can look at soccer hate. We can, what is this? The World Cup, who cares? I get all of that, and I ain't trying to argue with that. One of the reasons I love it is because you find out these things. Mm-hmm. The cultural, it's a cannon boom. It's cannon fire for 6 freaking weeks of, again, Curacao, 156,000 people living on an island on the north side of South America are in this tournament. The Cabo Verde goalkeeper shutting out Spain yesterday. In this case, Sadio Mane, Koulibaly for Senegal, this incredible, awesome African team that has those past and political connections, power connections to France. Ivory Coast. How about Ivory Coast? No big deal. Didier Drogba, Yaya Toure, them finding their way to a W the other day. Just some of you start to kind of connect the dots. You learn so much about these countries and and then you find these matchups. And yes, France, Senegal, maybe England, Croatia. There's a couple others, but France, Senegal is one of the coolest group stage matches that we're going to see all tournament.
A Northern Fire talkback winner will be crowned next segment, along with it being post time for the post game on KFAN.
This is 9.
Post game 9 to noon. Fun Tuesday show, the when and how, the loves we lost, all of that part of the opening hour in which, well, I mean, I don't want to open sores here or poke at wounds, but PA kind of did with this.
Cat leaves the Covenant, wins a title with the Knicks 2 seasons later.
Come on.
Darnold leaves in 25, party with the Lombardi in 26.
Don't keep going.
Kevin Love leaves the Wolves in 2014.
How could I forget?
Hoisting the Larry O.B. in 2016 with Cleveland, with the Cavs. KG, Kevin Garnett, leaves in 2007. He's hoisting the Larry O.B. with the Anything's Possible.
And there was about 90 seconds more as he added 6, 7, 8 more examples of the leaving our nest and finding another home for a trophy. Now, getting in through your talkbacks on a Talker Tuesday, there will be a winner mentioned momentarily. But into the 10 a.m. hour, Ben Gessling, kind of off topic. Some great Vikings conversation in the second segment, but just my fascination, PA's fascination, I believe, as well, in terms of Ben Gessling and his commitment to marathons. He's going to be up at Grandma's whooping it up, maybe qualifying for the Boston. But here he is. I just asked him a question. When you're training to run a marathon, how many times do you actually run a marathon?
0. I mean, some people do different on this. I don't know of too many people that will go to the full 26.2. I think the most I've done in a long run before a marathon is 23. That's been a lot of 20s, a lot of 22s. I've done a couple 20s this year. I don't think covering the mileage completely the before the race is that important. It's still going to be hard that day because you're also trying to run at marathon pace. So a lot of it for me has been trying to get more work in at marathon pace and having longer stretches of that. So that's been more the focus, I think, than just the sheer mileage.
Yeah, more on that conversation. Again, Minnesota Vikings-centric chat as well. Kind of in some ways, maybe trying to figure out the when and the how. The when's tricky, but the how, I think we all have some common themes and vibes as it pertains to that. Lastly, 11 a.m., Jalen Travis, De La Salle High School stud, went to Princeton. I think he finished his college career at Iowa State, where he was drafted in the 4th round by the Indianapolis Colts. Yeah, he hangs out in the same room with Quentin Nelson, and he got to meet Phillip Rivers.
It's fascinating because I think I'm as old as his oldest child. And, you know, Phil and I, we sat next to each other in the team meeting room, and it was funny. And like, there was obviously like, all right, like Phil's coming back for a reason, for a purpose, to try to help us finish this season on the right note. And he still has it, still, I think, one of the sharpest players that I've been around in terms of the way he understands and processes the game. And his legend status was made apparent from the first time I met him. And I think it was just fascinating for me as a young player, as a rookie, to just be around that. And even though it was just 4 weeks, to learn and grow and soak up as much wisdom and knowledge that I could from a guy like that in the backfield.
That's my podcasting suggestion for the show, KFAN.com, 9 to noon on demand. An elongated conversation with the impressive Jalen Travis about his leadership summit at De La Salle High School, June 26. KFAN.com for the podcast and the pod kizzle.
And finally, on a Talker Tuesday, the talkback that will indeed be the winner, Northern Fire Grilling and Barbecue Supply, sponsoring Talker Tuesdays. He kind of leaves us all with a question in terms of how does it have to get really bad for it to be good again?
Hey, Paul, Alan and Afton. If we want to stop being a feeder market for everybody else, one of our teams is just going to have to decide to go all the way to the bottom and rebuild. Whether it's the Vikings, the Wild, or even the Wolves, we are reluctant to strip it down to start over.
Oof.
We do just enough to be just good enough to just make the playoffs, to just lose. Later.
Congratulations to Paul. $25 courtesy of Northern Fire Grilling and Barbecue Supply.
And it wasn't of the Debbie Downer variety. He just came in and it was factual to a certain extent because it's easier said than done. But there are countless examples. Look at the Oklahoma City Thunder. Look at the San Antonio Spurs. Those teams were non-playoff teams for X amount of years. and then they drafted the right players. They get generational players like Shea and or Wemby, and they should be contending for titles for years. So their when is now. Their how was painful. Thank you very much for listening to 9 to Noon. Norder produces. I'm Paul Allen. May God bless you and all of your families. And the program is next on KFAN.
9 to Noon.
Time for 2 more.
Scratching and surviving.
Now, what did I do wrong?
The game is over. Ain't we lucky we got 'em?
I know, right?
Good time.
If it's good news or money, leave a message.
Podcast today's Paul Allen Show, or listen back to previous show and interviews by going to the iHeartRadio app or KFAN.com.
From the one